So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of the CAM Alumni Spotlight. Really appreciate this opportunity to share with you all. Speaking about my experiences with CAM, Erstwhile AMSS, I'm probably slightly unique as an alumni in a way because I've had two separate stints at CAM in two very different roles with a gap of some time in between, but two different roles. My first stint at CAM, I joined fresh out of law school in Bangalore. It was a campus placement, and I joined LV's team as a first year associate. My second stint at CAM was a few years later after I'd done my master's, worked in New York for some time, and I returned in a non-transactional role as to head the learning and training function. Both are very vivid experiences, and I have great memories. And I got to see the firm function from two different perspectives. But the core values and principles ran through both experiences, at CAM. Speaking of my first stint at CAM, it was a very foundational experience for me. It, I think, laid the ground for my subsequent career journey, be it in New York or thereafter in India. CAM at that point, when I was graduating from law school in Bangalore, was a day zero slot one job, which means it was like high on everyone's list. So it was very aspirational as a law student. And I had done some internships at CAM before. So I was familiar with the Peninsula office. Many of my seniors from law school were working there. So I was, there were familiar faces around. But nevertheless, these were haloed ground. And it was with like a lot of excitement and nervousness that I joined the firm back in that time. So a bunch of us from the same class were joining the Mumbai office, and I was given, I was to join LVC. And on the first day, I think when we joined, after a brief introduction to explain what project finance was, I was given an EPC contract to review. Now, some of you all may know, an EPC contract is a very long, dense, heavy document. And I'm a first year associate who does not even know like what EPC actually stands for. This, I think, is actually representative of my learning experience at CAM. It was very often at the deep end. The learning curve was steep, but it was always a nurturing, supportive environment. So everyone would be sitting in the same wing. They're all there for you. If you have any questions, to give any guidance, I mean, you just have to ask and people will help. But before that, you have to read, put in the effort to understand, figure out what you know, what you don't know, and ask the question. So it's required a commitment from you, and then the firm will, support you in that learning journey. I think it took me 2 days to just read the contract and understand it, much less have a critical view on it. But the key for me here was that, as a first year associate, the firm was willing to invest the time and energy and the resources to help me learn. And not just make me do those things which I could have easily done and added value from the first day onwards. And that, I think, has been that give and take, that investment of time that by everyone, to teach, to guide, to push, to demand quality of work, commitment of time, has been the bedrock of the relationship and the learning curve at CAM. I think all of us were working hard those days. There would be many days when we would be in the Peninsula office for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But they're all happy and warm memories because of the people around you who were invested in you, guiding you, and enabling that journey. My second time at CAM, was after I had done my master's at Columbia Law School. I had worked in Paul Weiss, New York for some time. And sir and ma'am had a vision to set up a structured learning program for young associates and mid-level associates, in addition to the continuing legal education program the firm had. Now, this segued with many of my own interests and goals at that point. I had taught a seminar course at NLS Bangalore. I had gone through a structured program as a young associate in New York. And I was really excited about putting together the curriculum and syllabus and all. So I think I helped run the program for about 3 years. We did specialized track-specific training for young associates and associates with a bit more experience. And Sir and Ma'am have always been pioneers, I think, in thought leadership and innovation. And this was exactly one of those. The structured training with the ATP program was, I think, unheard of in the Indian market at that point. And it was very helpful, I think, for associates as well as the team to kind of, ramp up the learning as they changed practice groups every 6 months and had to learn new things every 6 months. The key for me is also across both the stints is that, it's a firm that demands the best from you and gives you the best also, be it in terms of learning experiences, personal goals, aspirations, everything. I mean, it's not, compartmentalized. During my second stint at camp, my daughter was very young. She would have been about 2.5, 3. And it was one of those weeks when there was lots of work going on, and my entire support system really kind of vanished. My help at home was not available. My nanny was not available. My family was not available. And in any other organization, this would have been an impossible situation. But, ma'am very kindly said, you can just bring your daughter to office. So my daughter, as a 3-year-old, sat next to me for 2 days in office. And till today, she talks about it as, a wonderful, fun experience. So it is sort of like home, it's sort of family, it's sort of work. And I think that warmth, that acknowledgement that we all have different facets of life and that ability to give and take and support each other. I mean, it's a great foundation for any relationship and very rare to find, I think, in an organization. Working as general counsel at Elevar Equity, we are an impact-focused fund with offices in India, Seattle, and Mexico. I first heard about impact investing when I was a young associate in New York. I was working on a pro bono matter, and an impact fund was investing in a low-income housing project in Pakistan. So years later, when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in life, this came back to me, and it was a good fit in terms of, marrying my skills, my education, my training with doing something that was tangible and immediately in a real way for many people. So that's how I found my way to working in this space, and I'm really grateful for the different opportunities that I've had to work in this space over the years. I have an 8-year-old daughter, so time away from work is actually time with my daughter. So over weekends, we might go for a walk, go for a swim, have a meal together, lunch or dinner, do some craft projects. So the focus really outside of work is to do things with my daughter and spend as much time as possible enjoying these moments as she's growing up. In terms of memorable books, what comes to mind is a book called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Paul Kalanithi was a doctor, brilliant, trained at the best institutions in the world. And just as he's coming to the end of his grueling medical training, years of it, he's diagnosed with cancer. He writes the book while he's going through treatment, and he actually passes away before he completes the book. But in the book, he talks about how you have to live each day as if it is the beginning of a long journey and give it your best, as if, this is just the beginning of this massive race. At the same time, you have to live each day as if this might be your last or towards the end of like a shorter time. And that's a difficult balance to strike, but that is the balance that, that makes sense sometimes. I'm a Christian by faith, and I try to live by some of those principles, and therefore this resonated with me. Because one of the things that one tries to do, or those principles speak to me about, is to live each day giving your best and to the fullest, working as hard as possible, do everything as well as you can, while at the same time realizing that, the ultimate goal may not be about things of this world entirely, but beyond. A message, a thought would be, you should think of your career as the beginning of a journey. Sometimes when you're at the beginning, you can't see the end. You can't even see 5 steps ahead. But you have to trust in the process. And though it might feel like, you're just spinning your wheels and not learning, the learning is happening. And it'll become obvious at a certain point. So you have to stay the course and hold steady. At the same time, I think all of us have to kind of constantly ask ourselves the questions as to What are the facets of life that we want to emphasize on? What are the things we want to do? How do we want to spend our time? And at different points in time, at for each of us, the answer would be different. And we just have to make sure that whatever we are doing is aligned with where our heart is and where we've decided our life should be. And that, I think, is an iterative questioning, answering process that we'll have to go through in life.